Right, as I know I've just said it to you all, but it's just for the benefit of the recording. As today we are going to be looking at the Boundary tool, and this entire set of notes is based around the Boundary tool. The entire set of notes is looking just at this tool as a bit of kit to allow you to do some really sophisticated surfaces, to be honest. I've seen this tool used in all sorts of ways. Once I had a student who was into miniatures, and I think it was Warhammer 40k, and what he was doing is he was modelling a tank, and he wanted to be able to model the flag coming off the tank. Now that, as an example, is really good with something like this. So what we'll do is model that flag, because it's a nice little example to show you the tool of this. Right, so what I'm going to do, this is just a demo piece just to show you what this tool does. I'm going to go from the top plane, and I'm going to do a sketch. So what I'll do here is I'm just going to do a nice distance. Now what you're going to find, if anybody's been following me with the Inventor stuff as well, this is one of the things that Inventor do struggle with. This tool is something that I can only really find attached to Dassault. If anybody knows differently, please let me know, because it's been one that's puzzled me. It really has. If I go features, and I'm going to go reference geometry, and I'm going to go to plane, use the same tool as before, so I'm going to go line and point, there we go. So now we've got that normal to perpendicular plane which sits there. Now I hate these planes being so big, so I'm just going to scale that down just to give me an idea. Obviously the planes are infinite, so I often wish it would just scale itself a bit more sensibly. You can auto set them, so if I right click auto size, never mind. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to sketch on the plane, and what I'll do first is I'm going to put up a 3-point arc. Just get a 3-point arc up. And then what I'm going to do is, well, let's first take a look at this. This is one of the amazing, well, one of the fantastic tools of the Boundary tool. So I'm going to go surface. Now, we know this as a sweep. If I choose this as a profile and this is a path, it will just sweep along this profile. So what if I say this plane? Now you see here where it says direction 1. Now what it's saying is, what is your second direction? So it's going to give me two profiles that are going to interface together. So I've gone to direction 2 and I choose direction 2. Now that's what it gives me. Now you see the meshing. The meshing's a big inside. So let's say, for argument's sake, we weren't happy with the whole thing itself. So I can literally bring that halfway down. Whoops! Apologies. That was probably throwing the living crap out of me there. Right. So now we've gone halfway down. And what I'm able to do is, even if I don't like the full extrusion, I can bring, the full sweep I should say, I can bring this profile right back as well. And that then refines it to a small specific area. Depends what your profile is. But then when you kind of look and go, well, yeah, okay, that's great. I mean, I can build up the resolution as well. If this profile is really sophisticated, it may need more meshing in between it to allow it to deform correctly. So I can build up the meshing as well. And that density allows it to deform in smaller sections. I'm pretty sure most of you are quite familiar with FEA by now, or to a degree. You'll know about meshing. Meshing, the principle of meshing, is about your stress over strain and the way that the nodes behave. Right, if you step back from that idea, I was going to put my phone on silent, by the way. 2 seconds. conscious that they might ring me back. There we go. So if you think of the two nodes moving, you think of the way two nodes move, and if you think of the two nodes moving on FEA, they've got a spring in between. If you think of two nodes in surfacing, what it means is that you've got more representations to allow lines to move around. Because the thing is these arcs are actually generated based on the Bezier curve. If anybody knows I've just said that completely wrong, apologies, I'm awful for pronunciation sometimes. Right, so if I just confirmed that, for example, it gives me my first profile. That gives me my first profile. However, what if then we say, right, well, we're not really, that's not really what we're after doing. So what I'll do is delete that. And then we said, right, okay, then we want something at the perpendicular to the other side. So, okay. You should start to really see why people love this the way that they do. Because this as a tool is phenomenal. It really is. So if I choose to here, I go to this end and then to that point. And then we go, okay. So let's just put something on a little bit different. So what I'll do here is I'll put on a spline in this case, bring it up to here, a little bit to there, and then over to there, and then over to there. Now this is, let me just hide that plane. So I then hide that plane, right? Now if I go to boundary, and then if I choose this profile to this profile. Now this is going to happen to you a lot. I guarantee you it's going to happen to you a lot. Wind the crap out of you so it will. If this happens, go to your profile, right click, and then flip connections. There you go. Right, so if I now go to direction, and I'm going to cause that profile to move around like that. And then you go, okay, cool. So then, we're in the same position. I can refine. I can extend. I can lower. It almost becomes like Superman's cave. But there is an issue there. We have lost one level of control. You look there. We've now no longer got restriction. The rules of lofting now come into place. We've generated lofting. So imagine you took lofting, you took sweep, you amalgamated the two together. This is what you've got. The reason we spend our time going through lofting, going through sweep, is because you appreciate what these tools can do. Now, if we look at these, and there's all sorts of things I can do. So if I say normal to profile, no, it's not going to be happy with that. Because normal to profile, as you imagine, is trying to make that normal, but because we've so many curves now. So if I just confirm that, and we go, yeah, okay. So this now allows me to have one flow, one piece, and interestingly, that's how the student made the flag, by the way. Something very similar. However, in our flag makeup, let's say that the boss comes in and he says, well, it's too long, I want you to bring that back. So we go, okay, we can even do that as well. So we're going to delete that back out. And this is where it becomes so good it must be fattening. I'm going to go plane. This is my plane on the line, and don't forget I applied a spline. So what I can do now is say use that point as a point of reference, and just I'll leave that line on there for the minute because it's nice just to get perspective. So I'm going to put a sketch on there, and then I'm going to come back, and again I'm just going to generate a bit of a spline. So then I'll click OK. Right, so now what I'm going to do is hide that. So now, as you'd imagine, we've done that. We've done the lofting process. So obviously, if I did boundary, I could go U, I could go U, I could go U, and obviously it's dicked around with everything I wanted to do. So there we go. So I went to flips, and then we'll bring in the spline on here. Now, as you can imagine, in this type of sketch, I can bring that down, or I can push that back up. I'm just going to relieve my mesh density, by the way, because it's having a nightmare trying to keep up with what I'm doing. There we go. So, as ever, I can bring that down. However, I've still lost that control. So if I go back to this sketch and I delete just that one line, you kind of go, oh, hang on a minute, what's the deal? So if I bring that up to there, and then let me just go back to this because it's having a bit of a nightmare with me now because I'm messing with it. Bring it up to here. And I'm going to go onto there and then select. Oh, come on. There you go. Right. So now what we've got is we've got that loft. Best way to see it is a loft. Profile to profile with a guide curve. So we've now got that loft from here to this point. However, the beauty now is I've now taken this loft and extended along this guide curve here and just basically push that profile even further. If I want to bring that profile back, I can. So now I mean I'm in a great position right now. So again, this would depend on the profile that you were doing. A great way, I've seen this before, is if you imagine the bodywork of a car, you imagine you're coming from a headlight to wing, and you've got all these different profiles that are occurring. So you do your headlight to wing, then you go up to door, and you can build it all in one swoop, and then start to refine even more. It can be tricky because if we were doing something that was mid-80s build, a car that was mid-80s build, you know that these flows don't really exist, because the more sophisticated you get, the more of the car looks integrated, if you will. So things like, I'm trying to think which, I think Tesla has something very similar. I'd have to check on the bodyworks themselves. But what you can do is create that flow in one piece and then start to cut away. And what it gives that appearance of is this continuation of the car itself. Obviously, if you come to a sharp edge, it doesn't work like you want it to. I mean, let's just sample that. So if I delete and show you what I mean, if I just come back to my spline, and I'm going to edit my spline, and I'm just going to go to there. And then what I'll do, I'll just delete that for a second. I'm going to add the spline on. Shite. There you go. Just going to add that spline on, just to there, and then to there. And I'll leave it at that, and then just add on a line. Just to give you an idea, because then we've gone from curvature to hard linear edging. And it will give you a clear idea of how these all relate. So if I go browse, view. Now if you see there, it's broken it into multiple pieces. If this occurs, because it will occur, what I need to do is I want the system to see that as one piece. So I'm going to right click and go to Selection Manager. Selection Manager is an absolute godsend. It really is. So I'm going to choose my curvature, choose my line, then choose my third line, then click OK, and then flip connectors. And then just for completion, let's move towards the back. And then I will bring in that edge. And then click OK on that. I'm just really messing with the system right now. But you can see there, what it does is it will try and bring that edge in, knowing that there's going to be a split across it. The only real way to control that is by splitting entities. This is essentially what we did on the advanced lofting. So if I come up to the upper one here, you can see it flows across, but then I'll just turn off my edging to see how it would look in a more of a realistic example. See there, we've still got that edge, and if you are wanting to be clear about how this thing would be produced and after it was produced. A great way of doing this is going to display and zebra stripes. I know it looks very psychedelic, but on zebra stripes, if you look at where these flows are occurring, you can see this hard line, and this hard line does actually imply that you would see that. So if the light was bouncing off it, that's the type of aesthetic that you would get on whatever it is that you were producing. So if you wanted it to go, it wouldn't. You'd need to go back and you'd need to look at refining it. So this is what I meant before of depending on what you're drawing depends on if you can accept a hard edge or not. So that is the overview of a boundary. Now again, that's how the student produced the flag, because all he did is just curve it, and then all he did because anybody who's into Warhammer, you'll know that the flag itself tends to be worn, and all he did is then project cuts from the front plane and then started to wear it down that way, and the finished product of it looked pretty good. But that was done, did that 7 years ago, so the tools then were not as easy as they are to use now. Yeah, so a profile like that, you can thicken it, do whatever with it. Now, the reason I show you this particular for CA and mechanical, I'm going to be tasking you, probably going to be tasking you with looking at creating motorcycle body armour. I think that's going to be the big assignment topic for you guys. And motorsports will be tasked with the motorcycle itself. That's what I'm looking at the moment. So this will become your best friend. With aerospace, as I said, it's very similar to last year, but there's a few updates. This again will become your best friend because it creates that flow when you're moving from the main body of the base itself, and then moving towards empennage, places like that. You can create this flow and often get a really good one. But if you're moving in between panels, that's where you know that you don't need to keep going. That's how you know that you shouldn't keep going. Right, so that's the fundamentals of what it is. So let me show you the notes, and this should make a little bit more sense. As I said, this is one of the hardest set of notes that I have. I've not done it to be difficult, I've done it just because setting these sketches up can be quite tricky. Anybody who's confident, please, you're welcome to fire away and go as quick as you like. I have done 2 versions just because I've actually produced the sketch as well, just so that you're aware. Now, to show you where this goes, it's continuously built by boundaries. So all this is a simple teaspoon, nothing more. It's one that I came across a few years ago. It's a really nice example, and I just systematically built it up just so you guys could take a look at building this and seeing how it's actually done. Again, if anybody's skilled in this, you're welcome to fire away as quickly as you like. So I'm going to just download my boundary sketch. As you've noticed, as you should see, I've actually named it the spoon. And that's the profile that I've put together. So if anybody wants to jump past the sketch, you're welcome to jump past the sketching. I'll take you through, those of you who are wanting to do the sketching, I'll take you through the sketching now. But if anybody wants to just jump past the sketching, you're welcome to it. Building a good sketch, as I've always said, is extremely important. But if you're confused by some, because I know that these notes can be a little bit intimidating, so hence why I put this on here. But this actually, if I click onto it, you can see here it's a 3-point arc, and here is a spline. Now don't be fooled, this is actually a 2-point spline. As I said, I'll go through this sketch now and I'll build this up just so you're aware. Getting used to using these, for me personally, getting used to using this, the sketches themselves, is that little bit more value as opposed to just using Boundary and just aimlessly building something up. Before I crack on, is there any specific questions about what we've been doing so far? Just to show, because again all I've been doing is just introducing what the boundary surface is and the tool of it. If anybody's question is why does lofting still exist, I honestly do not know. I know that on CATIA they did away with the lofting tool and they just have Boundary because they took all the tools and put them into there. I'm not 100% sure to this day why lofting still exists. I do personally find though that sometimes Boundary can be too clever for its own boots, if you will. Sometimes you just want to be able to create profile to profile, and for some reason Boundary just does not want to play ball, no matter what you do. That's my experience with that though. So as much as I'm dogging lofting being there, at the same time I can understand why parts of it still are. Right, so I'm going to go and I'm going to start on this sketch. So again, that's the wrong one, that's the wrong one. Where the hell did I put that then? Let's try that again. There we go. Right, so, oh, it's because it's all on there as well. Right, so I'm going to start on this sketch. Again, it's a really odd sketch. Those of you who are from Runshaw, I'm guessing that you guys will have done some advanced stuff before. I don't know who took you for CAD in Runshaw. It used to be Ronnie, but Ronnie left, so I'm not sure who took you for CAD. But we're going to do this anyway. Oops, I lost my right, okay. Okay, yeah. I didn't realise he was taking you for CAD. Yeah, I didn't realise Dave was taking you for CAD. Dave was my student years ago when I was first lecturing, so I do know Dave. Right, so we're going to come from the right plane and we're going to go sketch and sketch. Again, just to reiterate where I'm going, that is the sketch I'm going for. Again, this set of notes can easily just turn into setting up these sketches. Funnily enough, it tends to be this sketch and this sketch that gets students annoyed, ready to kick off massively. The rest of the notes are actually dead easy, but it tends to be these two sketches. This was one of the reasons, by the way, why I ended up uploading the sketch, just because students were not happy with me at all. So I like to just offer that. So right, so I'm just going to look from the other side, just because I just like my Z to be moved in the positive component, because I'm going to be moving in that positive component. So a few ways of doing it. Now, this being such a pain in the backside to get going, and you're going to see what I mean in just a minute. If you look here, we know that we've got a center line, we've got the datum. Now we're going to operate like the very first set of notes when it was a difficult set of notes. We couldn't get the datum in position for the hairdryer, and it's just all over the place. And I must have had at least 20 emails with students telling me that the sketch wasn't working and it was wrong and he couldn't get all the dimensions on. So we've got to try and operate with what we got. So there's his datum. We know that's a 3-point arc, and we know that is a 2-point spline. Right, so what I'm going to do is go 3-point arc, bring that to there. Now that is in line, so I'm just going to hold that to that amount. Now it's a great tool, a massively great tool that I really do like in this case. If I go to Smart Dimension, I'm going to choose there, and I'm going to choose there. And you go, what? Now, some of you will probably know this. Me as a student, when I learned this, mint. So, I've gone from that datum, and I've gone to the edge of what my 3-point arc would look like. But if I go to leaders, look at this, arc conditions. Do I want the maximum, or do I want the minimum? Scroll back to the picture, minimum is the answer. Again, all I did is dimension, I've gone to leaders, and I've gone to minimum. Minimum. And, and, I don't know why I'm finding that funny, but I am. Double click into there, and the size on that is 5.715 millimeters. Now you see here, there you go, oh, that's not good. So I'm going to go, press Control, I'm going to select that point, I'm going to select that point, and I'm going to make these horizontal. Then if I do a dimension between here and here, it's come back at 56. I actually want this to be 38.1. So that's the easy bit. Yeah, that's the bit where we go, oh, that was well easy. I don't know what the problem is. Yeah. Now I've gone to spline. Somebody told me over the summer that this has now become very easy to use. If it has, I'll be so gutted. Because, not to be a pain in the backside, but it is really useful to learn how to use this. So I clicked on there, and then all I'm going to do is click select. So I'm on the 3 points here. So left click on it. Now, we've got show curvatures. What else have we got on here? I'll turn off my curvatures actually. So show constraints. I like to see all the constraints. Maintain it, internal curvature. Tangent drawing. Oh yeah. So you see here where my directional ball is. I'm going to bring that up. I want to turn that off from construction. I'll turn that off from construction in just a moment. But first things first. Then I'm going to bring that up to there, like that. I can move that from here like that to give me an overall angle. And I'm going to bring that down a little bit. Now, just get rid of that for construction. It's not for construction. The other thing that I do want to do is I want to set this dimension. So it's going to make my life easier if I do this now rather than later. So go on to there. So that dimension is 139.7. So I've got my dimension in position, and let me bring this up to. I've just turned my curvatures on because I can just see these edging here. I'm going to turn them back off actually, I don't want them curvatures. And what else we got? Right, so now what I'm going to do is put on a construction line. Now I've just put that there for a minute. I'm going to make that and that coincident. Then what I'm going to do is make this. This and this collinear, then what I actually want to do is make sure that this and this become tangential. This and this become tangential. So that now, at least now, when I'm manipulating, it should try and maintain a relationship between these two. I could almost lock these two together, because I mean, don't forget that line at the moment is just held by that perspective, but it gives me that extra bit of anchorage. What I'm also going to do is come back to this side and make these two tangential to each other. So I'll go here and here. Oh, there and there, sorry. Tangent. Right, so we're looking a little bit more closer now. And then I'm going to bring you down a little bit. Where? Oh, my construction's gone. It's a little bit frustrating because it's not running like I wanted that to. Come on, you swine. Let me just pull that out. Yeah, that's why, because I'm essentially trying to get that line to lock correctly. That's awkward. That's puzzled the crap out of me. See, it's even got me puzzled as that thing. Let me just check my original sketch, because that's frustrating. Let's just try that again. So just jump that back. Right click. There. Now you see there, that's what I was missing. I've just realised I've not put them in that notes. That is very awkward. It's pretty good that we're going through that sketch now. At least I can find out why students are getting so annoyed with me. The display polygon. Now this display polygon will try and run around the two curvature lines, and what I'm attempting to do is to try and create a relationship between it. And I want my line to run collinear to that display polygon, and that's what's going wrong. So you see there where I've gone in there, and if I just bring that back out, and that's what you can see, and these display polygons will allow it to move like that. And what I actually want it to do is I want this display polygon, let me bring that constraint line back in. So what I'll do is then bring that to there, make that tangent, there we go, there we go. Swine thing, swear to God. See, now that's creating this anchor point like that, which is exactly what I wanted. So bring this back a little bit, bring this down, and now what you'll notice is, even on the sketch itself, the black blue marker remains open. However, this one is what we're looking to constrain. So let's bring this as it was looked, so like here, and then we're gonna now this to here, not allowing me to fix that bloody thing. Just my luck. I'll bring that in a little bit. That's a little bit annoying. And yeah, that is not. I will check that. I'm not sure why that's not allowing me to do that. But what you can see there is we're starting to build up that particular shape. And yeah, that's really annoying me. Oh no, that's a bit nasty. Let me bring that back. I'll find out why that's not happening, because that's should be allowing me to, because I'm just proportional to there and there, yeah. Hang on, that might be, oh no, I'll come back to it. I'll come back to it. So I'll just be sat here fiddling. Right, so I've got myself a sketch there. It is a useful tool and you get the bloody thing to lock like you need it to. This is the exact same process here. Well, what I'm trying to do is to keep these horizontal, so I've got these profiles in position, and then what I'm going to do when I come to the lower point of this sketch, I'm going to look to create a construction around it and actually try and create connection between it. You can see here that the 45 degrees between there and there, because you've got your key markers here and here, and that allows us to have that relation. But first things first, let's just get this on here. Now just to check, we got one. In fact, let me just check the other sketch. It might be easier just to look at the other one, just to see how many profiles we've got on there. So if I come onto here and then exit now, let's have a look. So we've got number of splines on, number of spline points. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So we've got 4 points that we can operate to specifically there. Now you see there that there's that distance. That's on the sketch, but we'll do that right now. So coming from the top plane, I'm going to sketch onto there, and then I'm going to control an 8. We have 4 points, so I'm just going to zoom out a little bit, just so I can see these 4 points. And I'm looking to create, so I'll go 1, 2, 3, 4. I think that should give us enough. I hope that'll give us enough. Let me just double check on that again, because I'm just not sure. Because we have this key behavior here. That's right, yeah, because we have a construction there and there. Okay. So we're going to have 4 for a continuous. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Like that. And then looking at this, so let me just look at this again. You look at this profile that comes out, and what I'll do is do that across, and I'm going to recreate the same thing again. So I'm going to come back, but in this case now my spline, I turn my spline into a construction. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. Let me go back. Go spline, choose U to U. In fact, I'll just bring it to here, because what I want to do is make sure that I've got a proper connection there. So I'm going to select that line, select that point, and I don't think it'll pierce. Will it pierce? It will pierce. Happy days. So obviously that pierce will just make sure that there's the right thing going on. Now it shouldn't be constructed in such a way, so I'm just going to pull that out and pull that out. Whoops. Right. And pull that out. Right. Now this, what I wanted it to be, is for construction. And based on that line and this point, I'm going to make them perpendicular. And that line, whoops, that line and this point, that point and this line, make that perpendicular. And now what we got is a profile that we can control. So again, I can come out, come in. I can do it to whichever I specifically want to. And now, bring that down a little bit. Now we're going to do a distance from this point. So bring this down a little bit, and I'm going to do dimension U to U. And in this case, now for that distance, it is 3.099. And this is where this line starts to come into play. What I want to do is I want to create a relationship now. So I'm going to click onto this point and this point and make these two merge. So now I've got this. The next thing I want to do is I want to make this point and this point coincident to each other. I didn't want that, so I'm going to do this point and that point. Oh, it's going to do the same. Oh, didn't want that. So we'll go the other way, this point and that point. Oh, I didn't want that either. What I'll do temporarily is I'm going to fix it in place. Shouldn't really fix. But it'll allow me to just get this in position first. And then I'm going to remove that fixture because I don't want that. I'm going to come back on here, and what I'm now looking to do is, you see where we've got this control marker here? This is where my dimensions are going to come in. So I'm going to go, if this will work, come on you swine. Come back on here. I'm going to go that line and that line. We're going to have to put on a sketch. Swine. Let's just activate that. By moving it, I can activate it. So let's try that. U and U. Not happening for me today, that is it? See if I can change this by its leaders. Can't change it by its leaders. Then what I'm going to do is switch on my control polygons, because it's just not allowing me to display my control polygons. It's not allowing me to constrain like I wanted it to. Story of my life. And from this one to the same, display control So let's try that one instead. You going to allow me to do it? Swine. Okay, let's going to remove that. Basically, I'm trying to get a constraint between this polygon and that polygon. And it is not playing ball with me today. Well, when in doubt, cheat. I'm going to put on a construction line, put it onto here, and if it's going to be such a pain in the backside, which it is, I'm actually going to make these lines between here and here collinear, and that was quite nice. Just add that as a construction line, and then I'm going to make this and this collinear, and make this and this collinear. And because it's getting very bloody confusing, just turn off my control polygons and then get back to what I was doing, because that was very irritating. So I'm going to go to dimensions, onto there, and onto there, and now I can have my 45 degrees. So I go 45. Again, I am very pleased I've actually gone through this now. So I'm starting to see what so many were getting annoyed with me about. To show you, it's running. We're running almost in line to each other. Now there's a greater edge on the inside here. The reason I put that on there was really just to show everybody really that you can control that feature. So if well, as I'm not having much luck with that, I'm just going to go back to the same thing. I'm going to put my line onto there, make that, whoops, put my line onto there, and I'm going to make this construction. I'm going to make these two, I'm going to make this collinear to this. So I'll make that collinear. And now what I can do is I can move this relative to what I want it to be. And I can tune to which way I want to go. So I can make the spoon quite small. Whoops, not that small. I can make it a little bit smaller, a little bit. And I can make the head more wider if I wish. Oh, because that's my master. I can make the head more wider if I wish. Or not, it's entirely down to what I want it to be, and then I can suit with that. Now, the last thing that I didn't do yet is I'd not put on the constriction around the back end of the spoon, which is here and over here. So all I'll do now is do that, and first things first, I want to make it so that this line here, this point I should say, always remains. Oh, that didn't go so well. Tell you, it's not working out for me today. So first things first, I'll bring that to there and then go to there. Use my control, and I'm going to try and keep this and this collinear. Oh, parallel that should have been. I'll keep it parallel. Because now what I've got is I've got a nice little way of having more of a sophisticated spoon. So if I bring that back up a little bit, right up to the top. Now all I need to do now is just put on a distance between there and that point. This becomes 6.35. And the other thing that's still at a loss is this point. Let me spin it up a little bit because that's not playing like I wanted it to. There you go. Always happens to me. I'm not sure why that happens sometimes. So I've just made that horizontal. This is purely because once I start to put on the overall construction of that, it needs to run in line with everything else. It needs to be clear about where it's all going. And again, referring back to my draft, on here I'm running very close to the edge. I can run that right in if I wish. Maybe a little bit further out. As I maintained before, it's difficult now. We're now moving into a position where what do you do when you don't have all the dimensions? And you've got to make something work. It's tricky. It's really tricky. So, let's bring that back. And that's something like you should get, or something. Let me have a look to see what we get here. So we're now going to make an arc which meets the circle of the original spoon itself. 2 seconds. Let me just have a look at what the question is. Yeah, I've just had a comment of just fudge it to be right, and to be honest, yeah, when you get to this, you kind of go, I gotta make this fit somehow. I've got to do something, and you do feel exactly like that. You do come away and go, wow, I'm just fudging this like mad. It's so frustrating. But yes, I it's a good comment. So what this is referring to now is building up a plane coming from the front point. So if you remember, this was originally done on the datum. So if I go on the front plane, you see that's where it sits. Now the reason that this comes in at 19.5 is it's halfway off here. So if I do a feature and then go plane, and then go 19.5, bring that in, and it puts me at midpoint of the center here. So if then go sketch and sketch, Control and 8, just a normal 2. As I said before, a student showed me that. It's been absolutely amazing since he showed me that. Right, so I'm just going to put on, coming from the datum, then put my circle on, and then just do a diameter. In fact, it's not a circle, is it? It's actually 3-point arc, really. So what I'll do first then is before I even put that diameter on there, I'll just trim it all down. So I'll do my construction line, come from the center point on the quadrant, quadrant to quadrant, and then I will do trim from the top, trim to closest, trim from the top, and then I'll simply put my radius on from there. 15.84, 15.84, 2. I made a mistake. Shoot, where did I make a mistake there? Let me just check back on my original damage. I must have made a mistake because that is... Yeah, is that not... Someone's just pointed out, is that not a diameter? No, it's a radius. That's really... Wow, that is a radius of 15.84. And where did I... Oh, hang on a second. Is that coming from... I worry that this is where it's coming from, so let me just edit on there. 38. No, it's not. I've just remembered what this is. Right. Right, let me just show you this. This is where I got myself very confused. I'm thinking, what the hell? That is such an odd size. If you actually look, I've drawn it from there, and then I'm actually talking about moving it to the arc quadrant. So you look here, and it's actually pushing it to the arc quadrant, and then you're locating it from that arc quadrant. So that is actually, oh, no wonder Stu's getting so mad with me. I'm getting mad with myself. Yeah, it's, yeah, oh, yeah. That is not any good, but it is what it is. Right. So I'll show you what I mean. On here, if you look here, I've got my pierce there. So if I just jump to the correct one, which is that one, it's because I'm sitting actually on the datum still. And if I right click, go back again, and what I'm going to do is just remove my datum build there. Right. Now a few ways with it. If I just come back down to here, getting the arc quadrant is a bit of a pain and is quite tricky. So if I come down, and there's a few ways I could come down, I could locate that marker onto there, just to put it there. So at least then I've got an arc quadrant marker. And because if you remember, when you're piercing, you need a point and then where you're going to pierce to. So if I press Control now, select my point, select my arc, and then I pierce, that puts it into position. So that's one way of doing it. In the notes, which I do need to definitely fix now, in the notes what you'll notice I've done is I've put a construction line straight up and then connected that two together, mainly because I've got these set as horizontal, so it's marking it off, but I did that just so it would hold its distance no matter what, and that's all that is. But yeah, that explains an awful lot as to why that wasn't playing ball. So now all we're going to do is we're going to use that line and we're going to create the first circle from there. And let me just hide that and hide that. So all I'm going to do is go surface, I'm going to go boundary, I'm going to go profile. In fact, no, I'm not. I'm going to delete that. I'm going to use, we're using this profile, aren't we? So it's going to give me the whole thing like that. And then what I'm going to do is go direction 2. I'm going to right click and go selection manager, just because I know that it's just that one that I want, and that's what it does. It creates me the whole thing as one giant sweep. Now you'll notice what I did then is I jumped quite a bit upwards. Just give me, can you just excuse me for 2 seconds? I just need to nip out. Just give me 2 seconds into the loo, which is a little bit too much detail. Oh, 2 seconds, just realised that I got a question coming in. I'll just pause that again. I'll just repeat that just for the benefit. Now you'll notice I used selection manager on one side, but I didn't use it on the other. The other one's gone right up here. And you kind of go, if you refer back to the original notes, if you refer to the notes, it literally is saying, just give us to the stem itself. It's basically looking for that arc. There's a few ways that we could do it. And what we're looking to do is to just create that back end. So what I'll do is I'm going to do that. I'm going to make my life easier. I might as well make my life easier. So I'm going to close that, and I'm just going to repeat this. Right. So I'm going to go boundary. Now if you remember, the first thing that we selected was the back profile, the whole edge up the back. Now, I mean, looking at the notes, if you look at the reference itself, it's referring to the back end of the stem here, and using that as a profile. Maybe we should. In fact, maybe we should. So what we'll do is I'll use that. Change my mind. I am going to use that as a whole profile. Then what I want is I don't want to include that. Now, if I click it, it will just click the whole thing. And you go, well, that's not what I wanted. Selection manager, if I simply, anywhere on here, right click, brings me up all my profile checks, and I go selection manager. This tool is amazing. So as I said, you can have a loop, anything with a closed loop, it will pick it up. You can go for continuous open loop edging, so it will click on something and try and find the rest of the edging. You can go for overall closed region, or a single selection, or multiple select groups. Now I use select groups because this is a group, but I just want to select that one. Once I'm happy with it, if I click my green tick, it gives me that. Now the reason I went back to that is just because I looked at the notes and realised that there's something really nice that we can use in this, and that we are going to use it. We are going to use that to our benefit. We might as well. It would be crazy not to. So what I'm going to do is go OK, and that's what I get. Let me just come. Yeah, you see here it's only gone halfway. I'm starting to think we should have done the same, but we could trim it out anyway. We can trim that profile out, but maybe I do. Maybe I'll just come back, and in this case I'm just going to bring this right down to here. If you remember earlier, I was dragging them markers around, and I'm going to just chop it down to half, so I'm in that position. Again, all I did was right click, edit feature, and got rid of it. Right, so now what I want to do is start to trim stuff away. I have put too much on there as well. I should really bring this down to perhaps here. So I'm going to edit on there. And you see where I've gone there, I've gone too much. So I should be really more like down here. Or maybe even here. Again, let me just compare on these notes. It's just at where I'm necking based on my my construction points. So let me come back down, zoom it into the edging a little bit, and it's just about where I'm necking to that area, so that'll be okay. Right, so now what I'll do is I'm going to trim out this profile, because that's what's going to give me my initial first point of the spoon. And what I'll do is I will go to trim, standard trim, use my sketch and get rid of that. So again, all I did was I went to trim, from standard trim, selected the original sketch that I'm using and used that as a trimming tool, and then clicked OK. And that's what I get. I get my first real profile of the spoon. My spoon profile there needs a little bit of tidying up, but it's definitely getting there, which is good. So now coming back to there, I'm now looking to bring in the rest of that profile. Now a great way of doing this now is we have the two profiles that merge together. We can use these two to our advantage because they should now start to come into play. So if I come back to my original sketches, I should have really named my sketches. Bit of a shoddy thing to do really. So I'm just going to show that, and I'm going to show that. I think my spoon height there is perhaps a little bit too high. Could do with bringing that down a bit. Because if I compare it against my original sketch that I've given you, we're getting these relations there, but it's still a little bit too short, I would say. But, right. So, where are we at now? Right, so what I'm now aiming to do is to bring these up that little bit more. Yeah, God, I'm really seeing how annoyed I must have made some of the students over the years looking at this. Right, so what I'm aiming to do now is to do the same thing again. I'm going to, there's a few ways really. I can use this point and I could use that as a profile and bring that all the way to there. And I can trim that away. I can do all sorts now. I can do a line straight from above to make sure it's coincident between the two. I can do all sorts with it. I'm just looking at what would be the best way with it. So, let me have a look. I'm going to do, trying to think of the best way of doing that now. One second, let me just check something. Just checking my notes on that. I'm actually just pulling my actual original one because I just wanted to check something. Right, so what I was getting myself confused about then is, see how I've got a flow between it. Now I was just thinking to myself, how did I actually get that to flow there? And then it just dawned on me. Apologies, I was just having a bit of a brain fart. The profile now, the way that this is now controlled is it brings these two together. Now, for the notes wise, the way that this is definitely not referring very well to is it refers to bringing in a perpendicular plane onto here, and then what you're doing is sketching around the back of it. Now, because I've just paused a little bit, then what I'm going to do is perhaps simplify this, because the profile at the back is just to make it look like your old Victorian type spoon. But what I'll do is come onto here and then make that perpendicular. Now the reason that I'd done that originally was because if you remember when we put these and we made sure that they were horizontal, is it now means that I can put a sketch on there and it should make sure that everything stays in line. So if I do a sketch from my datum, for example, and then just do a sketch across, and what I want to do with these now is if I go point to point, this is a bit different from the notes, it's just making life a bit easier for us to take a look at this. If I go point to point, and then I can actually curve that a little bit. I mean, a little bit like that. And what it will allow me to do is perhaps bring that down a little bit, bring that over, and then just like that, for example. And what this actually does is it creates a profile for me to sweep between, for me to loft in between. So if I then do a boundary and select my profile to profile, and then as ever it's messed my guiders up, so flip that over and I'll use that as a profile, and it's too highly gone along, so can I bring it back up a little bit? Oh, look at that, it's actually not trimmed everything like I wanted it to. That's a real pain in the backside. 2 seconds, I'm just gonna fix that because that's very annoying. That's because I've probably, yes, I've not brought that line in enough. What I may need to do is trim that out a little bit, because that should have given me a bit better than what I thought. So if I'll do again, I'm going to go boundary, I'm going to choose that as an edge, I'm going to choose that as an edge, I'm going to go boundary and see if I can select my pointers now and just go to that edge. If it's going to let me, is it going to let me? No, it's still not going to let me. It's because we've got overlap over it, so I need to fix that, and I suspect you're all in a similar sort of position. So what I'm going to do is just sketch from the top, and I'm going to trim out any little bits of crap that's on there. That's very annoying, but it's easy to fix, it's no bigger. So if I just bring it from a centre point, and then I'm just going to use that to trim out any bits of crap that's sitting there. And is anybody wondering if that's a technical term? Yes, it is. Big old bits of crap. I'm going to remove that. There we go. And it just trims that bit out to make it a bit more smooth for me. And now if I go back again and then go loft and down to there, down to there, and then it should allow me to sweep between it, which it does. And then bring it all the way back like that, and then okay. Now you see there, I've got that flow. Ideally, because if I wanted this to flow out a little bit, I could put more profiles all the way down, so I could move down here now, put more profiles into it, and to make it more spoony. So if I just hide that, and I'm going to hide my sketches for a minute, hide the sketches, and a few ways now I've got, after the painful process of bringing that together, I do want to make sure, because you look here, I've got this very inconsistent behaviour going on here. Now that instantly tells me that there's something wrong there, so I'm going to go trim, I'm going to go mutual trim, I'm going to be there and there, and I just want to remove one of them surfaces, so that one, perhaps that one, whoops, delete that, let's see if that fixes it. We've still got this overlap here as well, so again I'll do the same thing here and here, I'll trim, get rid of that one, let's go there, is that it? Right, so now we've got this tiny gap between it. I'm just going to knit that one and that one, and I'm going to merge the entities together. It should forge them like that. See how we've got this smooth gap between it? It's bang on for what we're after. And now what I can do, when it comes to mirrors, mirrors are a real pain in the backside. I can mirror this, so if I go mirror, if I go mirror, and I go feature, and go to mirror. Now, most of the time, most people know bodies. No features to mirror. When you come to surfacing, it is only bodies that can mirror. And then what we want to do is we want to knit the surfaces, and it should forge it like that. So then, all I need to do now is thicken this, and thickening from this point now is the big test. Now I've made changes on this, so this might not even thicken. Better add thicken though. So I'm only just doing this because there's another set of things that I want to take you through yet. So the thickening on this case, it was 1 mm thick. So if I just do thicken, And wow, that's a big spoon. Got a 1mm stick. And go okay. And then what we get is a basic bit of spoonage. Now ideally as well, if you look, you've got that edge, that ironic edge that you can find on some of the silverware spoons. Again, that's just me. I changed it back there only because the profile of drawing these bloody sketches on there is a real pain in the backside. Okay. Okay, 2 seconds, I'll come back to that. So, yeah, the only reason I'd done this was just purely because drawing all these profiles on there is a pain in the backside. Yeah, it's drawing them on there is a real pain in the arse, really. I should have just checked on that, but what I will do is I will also upload you my original as well, so at least then you can see on both. Right, so let's have a look. If you're struggling with this, how am I going to do it when I've never used CAD before? You've never used CAD before. This is the first time you've ever seen SolidWorks before. Have you never used AutoCAD? You've never, wow, you've never used AutoCAD and this is the first time you've ever used SolidWorks. With a spline can be quite challenging. So yeah, that makes sense. I mean, if as I said, if this is brand new to you, then yeah, we are doing to get some practice in for you. Has anybody any other questions on that? As I said, that's the one where I've just simplified the back end just to make sure that we can get to the end with that. What I would recommend is you have a go with just setting up splines. Splines are the ones, they're a real pain, but once, as I keep saying, once you get them into position, then they function. They're really good for what they're for. So this type of technique would be really good to generate things like, let me think, wing profiles. They'd be quite good for the empennage. They'd be really good for the cockpit in any type of aerospace design. They'd be really good for the nose or the front nose cone on Formula 1 cars, Formula student cars, motorcycle fairings. If you know where your key points are going to be and how you need to interface, then it makes life so easy to be able to do these different things. But when you're operating blind, it is quite tricky, and getting them into position is quite tricky. But yes, that is the basics. Yeah. But as I said, you must keep practicing with this. I'm just going to save this to my desktop because there is something else that I still need to show you. Right, so these are up there, so please take a look at them and have another look at them and keep practicing with them, playing around with it. As I said, some of you will be very used to using boundary surfaces, but I would recommend just having a play around with them and getting used to them, because it is a pain in the backside to get them function exactly like you want them to. So I'm just going to close that. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to go to sketch pictures. Now sketch pictures, as this is a really super short set of notes, but this is a really useful tool. I'm sure a lot of you have seen this before, but I'd like everybody to be aware of this. Now this is the process of setting up guidance sketch tools, things like that. yeah, things like that. Now this is using what they call blueprints. If you've not done already, so let's say you wanted to set up a sketch of, I don't know, let's say a particular aircraft or a particular car. If I go to blueprints.com, now you can get lots of these all over the internet. So I'll go to the blueprints. So I've gone to blueprints.com. If you've not done already, I'd always recommend signing up for this. They are really useful. So now in your, just have a look what the question is. Let me just double check. Great question. Yes, I have. Just asked if I turned the recording on. I have turned the recording on. I turned it on. The only, as I've said to a few before, the only reason you don't see it is because I'm using an on-screen recorder. I'm not using Stream to do it, just because if anything goes wrong, it will record it going wrong. By doing it this way, it makes life easier. So the only thing I do need to stress here: vector drawings in the assignment are totally banned. Vector drawings are all the two-dimensional drawings completed. Please don't do it, just because it's your loss. So if I just go, let's have a look. Let's go. So now all I've done is type that in, or clicked that in. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on, let's just have a look. Let's go on the F1. Now, see how we have this image. So if I download the full image, is it going to let me? Yeah, I can. Now I'm already signed in. I've already got an account with it. It is free. What I'm going to do is just right click on it, save image as, and then just put that on my desktop. Now personally, to break these up, you can use Paint if you wish. I personally always use Microsoft Visio. Microsoft Visio is a phenomenal bit of kit. It allows you to make all types of labels, figures for books, and also it's really good, and it is for you guys at the moment still free. So I'm going to go Insert, I'm going to go Picture, and I'm going to go Desktop, and I'm going to go to my image that I've just downloaded. All I've done is just inserted that picture. What I actually need is I want this broken into 4 separate pieces. So I'm going to copy this and paste it in 4 times. So I put one there, put one there, and put one there, and repeat the same process again and again. Right. So what I know is I want them breaking into 4 pieces. I'm going to keep them, not change their sizing. I'm going to break them into 4 pieces for a reason. So if I click like that, and then crop for my side view, and then crop for my front and back view, and then crop just like that. And all I'm doing is separating them into 4 separate pieces. So first things first, I'll set up the side and the front view. So I'm just going to left click on there, and I'm going to save this. Needs to be as a JPEG. So if I go on I'm just going to browse it to my desktop and call this side. And I'm just going to drop this as a JPEG, and then click OK, and then OK, and I'm going to do the same thing. Now this can be really useful because, again, if you're having to operate with something that you don't know, that your values you're not sure about, these types of things can help you get started. And I'll show you what I mean. So I've done my front and my side view, and all I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to a new, well, I'll just put in a new sketch. I'm going to go right, sketch and sketch. I'm going to go insert, tools, sketch tools, sketch picture, and then click. So what I'm going to do is come to my top and then go to my side view and click OK. Now that is my image in there. I personally have always preferred these to come from the middle, so I've always preferred to try and get these central as possible. So that tells me about 55. The reason I do this is because I'm going to use this as almost like tracing paper, and all I'm trying to do is get that middle of the image roughly there. Now don't forget, this will only ever be a rough insight perspective and helping me draw something perspectively. So if I click OK on that, I'm going to left click on there, and I'm going to call this side profile. And I'm going to go to the front, sketch, sketch tools, sketch picture, and come from the front. Again, all I'm going to do is move things around. You see there where it's out? This is because now what I really needed to do is to be a little bit more centered. It's just because how I've trimmed it, that's where that's coming. And something like that. Now, let's say, for argument's sake, I want that curve that leads from just to the lower light and I want it up to the wing, just at the top end of the wing, that typical area. If I click onto it and then go front profile, now these now are separate. Do not, if you do this at any time, do not draw straight onto them, ever, because what this will do is it will connect the sketches as well and make your life difficult to interact. So what I'll now do is sketch again above. Now what I'm attempting to do is to get this edge, so if I click on sketch, Control A, what I'm actually attempting to do is to just get this spline, if you will, that edge there. So what I'm going to do is click there, there, and I'm literally just tracing up the edge. See how I've got the line there, and then if I come back out, and what I'm going to do is come to the right plane, click on sketch, Control 8, and I'm going to come, now from what I think there, it comes around up that way. Could be wrong though, but let's give it a go. So I'm going to come to there, onto there, and then just follow that edge just upwards, like that. And then if I go to my profiles, I'm going to hide my profiles, and that's what I've got, two separate lines. Now I can convert these into three-dimensional. So if I wanted that edge, I can go to Features, Curves, Projected Curve, through Sketches, that edge and that edge, and there's my line. And that edge now, it needs tidying up a bit, it's a bit groggy at the bottom, but that now allows me to look at that little bit more. That technique is a dead simple technique. I'll go through this technique again and again and again to show you the intersecting projections like that. I'm going to keep showing you this, but that is just an extra tool that will help you as you're moving along. Is it not better to make a spline as one line and then adjust angles to suit? Right, okay, I can see your point. Now that's a good point. Now I've had a question about, is it not better to just make a 2-point spline and then adjust them edges to suit? 90% of the time that is a really good functionality and a good technique to create that profile. The trouble is the way that we were looking at that particular profile then, there were so many curves between it that you probably need a spline with around, I'm just guessing, 3-4 profiles with it. Now, if you were interested in building that up further, what you could easily do is convert that. You could go to a 3D sketch, for example, and you could convert that. And I've seen a lot of people do this. Don't worry, I'm not expecting this for your assignment, but I've seen a lot of people do this where they'll put that on there, they'll turn that into construction, and then what they do is they come back with that exact technique. So what they're trying to do is minimize the level of points that's in it, so they'll come back with a spline, and then they come in and then they'll tag along that line, minimizing the level that they've got on there. And then they click onto there, and then it creates more of a smoother interface across it, almost filtering out the noise, if you will. So I can see your point, and it is a very, very valid point, but it depends which way you're going about it. But that is a good idea, I would say. Have we got another question? No. Right, so the two things that I really wanted to show you there was the sketch pictures. The sketch pictures, all that they allow you to do is they allow you to start with an initial point, give you a rough position of where everything sits. They allow you to put a line into position and then try to extract where these edges come from. And even though these really get used as rough guidance, and they're only ever rough guidance, I'd only ever suggest that you only set these up just to give you a rough idea. In the past, when I've had students who did cars for their assignment, because I've had a lot of cars over the years, I've had students who drew the wheel position first and then modelled inwards that way to give themselves perspective of how big things were meant to be. I will show you some examples of students' work in the past. Again, your assignment is not going to be that much different to what they've done, but there is going to be differences there, just because over the years I've had students do this, just pass the assignments down. So that's not a fair way of doing it. But yes, that is the two main pieces there. The last thing that we've got to cover with this is the filled surface. Using the filled surface, because we've used extrude, we've done some revolve, we've done some sweep, we've lofted, we've now done boundary, we've done freeform. The only thing that we've not used yet is the filled surface. Once we've done the filled surface, which is a little bit of set of notes, and then we are going to do, I'm going to hand out the assignment, and yeah, then the sessions will be used for support in themselves. If there's any assistance that you need, I can try and help you in getting that profile working. But other than that, that is where we are. So as I said, next week the session won't run just because it is so-called reading week. The week after we'll do that set, and then you'll get your assignment. I'm just going to stop recording.